Is there any news on the Núñez situation? Well, only... No, yes and no. He's gone. I mean, that's one thing I can say to you. It'll be just where he goes. So, one poster on X actually put up something that I think is very interesting. You may know him if you're on X. A guy by the name of at the Cop HQ, Spying Cop, said, sell Núñez to Saudi for around £60 million, then get Hugo E for a similar price, less wages than Núñez, 3 years younger than Núñez, a typical FSG/Edwards type of signing and scenario. And it is. Now, I'm not saying that is exactly what's going to happen, but I'm already seeing a lot of walking back on the situation with Isak, and that would be very much what I would expect from our club. Get the same money for Darwin, change him for somebody like Hugo or Cunha or somebody around the same price, and then we'll end up with a 40 or 50 million net spend in general over the course of the summer, and not the big summer spending spree that we're all being led to believe. But hey, look, let's wait and see. Again, as I've said to you guys all the way through, I'll believe it when I see it this summer. There was actually an interesting bit of information around why the Isak deal is even more expensive than maybe people initially thought from the outside. So the Athletic have said that to add more complications to any potential Isak deal, the Athletic report that Newcastle still owe over £30 million on his transfer, and also that Real Sociedad have a sell-on clause. They go on to say that he will be astronomically expensive. And they're not words that we would associate with Fenway Sports Group and their ownership of this football club, going out there and buying astronomically expensive players. So I've never believed that Isak was going to be the guy coming through the door. But again, I don't want to go too much in on the owners yet, because let's wait and see how this situation comes out. And look, if Hugo E comes in to replace Darwin for similar money and does better, nothing wrong with that. Genuinely, like, I'm not against good business. And if Darwin was sold for 60 million and we spent that on Hugo and he came in and he did the job, even maybe, 50% better than Núñez, that's an improvement. And I'm not against that. I'm not against the club doing smart business, but I'm still waiting to see this real determination to back the manager properly and win. And to do that, you need a bit of both. Nothing wrong with smart business, but you do need the financial backing as well. John and Tom Verner out said, Craig, maybe I'm stupid, but could there be a world where Liverpool sign Hugo? How can I not get his name right, by the way? Somebody please help me out with this one. As our 9 and Cunha as our left winger. Played numerous times and excellent. Look, absolutely. For me, there's a couple of interesting things that come up. And I don't know your real name, mate, so I'm just going to call you JT for the minute. If Elliot goes, I'm intrigued to see what type of player we bring in then. Do you bring in another number 10 type player? Or do you do, like you've said, I'd be very happy, by the way, with something along the lines of what you've said there. Hugo and somebody like, who was it you meant? Cunha or Šeško. I'd be over the moon with that. But what we will hear this summer, whether we want to admit this or not, is we're going to hear things like not blocking the pathway for your Jadon Danzes, your Lewis Kumases, your Rios. And there's validity to that, of course there is. But it can't always be used as the excuse. It used to be there was no places in the squad, then it was the wage bill, and then it was some players weren't available, and I just don't want excuses. There's no more time for excuses with me. It's shit or get off the pot, as we say over here. Hugo Eketake. Eketake. I'm going to try. I'm going to get it right eventually. Tobias, how are you, bro? Said, who do you think is the most realistic as a striker signing this summer? Julian Alvarez has gone really quiet. I think what that gentleman on X said won't be too far away from what we likely see happen. So, sell Darwin, recoup most of the fee we're going to spend on either somebody like Hugo or Cunha or Šeško. Somebody around that price point would be my guess. Who I like is, like you've mentioned, Julian Alvarez, Alexander Isak, but the more that each day goes by, the more that this Isak opportunity is looking less and less likely unless Newcastle miss out in Champions League. And even at that, you're still talking about an extremely expensive deal. So, yeah, I would say expect somebody in and around that 60 mark, but open to being wrong on that one. Ian Greenstreet said, Craig, I've seen Cunha wants out of Wolves and he's looking for European football. Yes, and Romano did him dirty. And I said this in our Discord group yesterday. Fabrizio Romano absolutely did Matheus Cunha dirty. Because this is what Romano posted. And Cunha even spoke about how this has been misinterpreted. So Cunha, according to Fabrizio Romano, he posted this. Matheus Cunha, I've made it clear that I need to take the next step. I want to fight for titles. So that's what Romano said that Cunha told Sky Sports. Now this is what he told Sky Sports. I had a lot of offers, but I wouldn't feel well if I'd done it. Speaking about leaving in January. Some things you can't control, but I couldn't leave the club in the middle of the season in a difficult situation in the relegation zone. Now, we're close to achieving our goal of staying up, but I've made it clear that I need to take the next step. I want to fight for titles, for big things. I have potential. That comes across very differently to the snidey 2 lines cherry picked out of it there by Romano to make it look like Cunha's kicking up a fuss to try and get out. Agree or disagree? Harry said, thoughts on Seshko, He would be another centre forward option, young and full of potential. I love the idea of him, mate. Absolutely. I'm actually astounded that he isn't the only one Arsenal are going for. No, I know he is on Arsenal's list, but yesterday there was a lot of talk that Arsenal are looking at Victor Gyökeres. I think it was David Ornstein said that he's on Arsenal's list. So, a couple of things about Seshko. One, Kloppo could give you a rundown on him and whether he thinks he'd fit in at Liverpool. I'm sure the scouts know all about him. He is going to move on this summer from Leipzig. Went from Salzburg, moved into Leipzig, stayed there, and the release clause allows him to move this summer. So, I'd be a happy fan if he came into Liverpool. I think he's a wonderful player. Is he going to be a prolific out-and-out 9 himself, or is he more of that second forward? I guess time will see with that one. Is it okay with Klopp to privately communicate with Liverpool about getting certain players for RB teams? Well, look, think of it this way. They know he's going to move on this summer. So anybody who's interested in the player is going to have to register that interest with Leipzig. And you would have to say that there's probably a good channel of communication there for Liverpool to speak to Klopp about his thoughts on the player, especially if it's a player that's already going to be moved on this summer. So I wouldn't see an issue with that one. Hoarder said Darwin out, Isak in. Honestly, mate, I think if you were to ask me to give you a percentage, I would say I'm less than 10% that we sign Isak. Now, that's just opinion. I don't know what you don't know, but as a fan, I'm certainly not sitting here expecting Isak as much as I'd love him, or Alvarez as much as I'd love him as well. I'm fully expecting the kind of spending that you guys are in the chat there, your Cunhas, your Delaps, your Sesko. That's kind of where I'm at as well. Maybe even your Hugo, all in and around that 60 odd million mark.